can call me Mystic Mike because I predict these things.
Brando Peričić takes on Elisha Ellison this Saturday at UFC Fight Night, Perth, Australia. And this is kind of a low-level heavyweight fight, in my opinion. You know, both these guys don't have a lot of experience, 4-1 versus 5-1. I think these guys were supposed to initially fight on Dana White's Contender Series. It got pushed out to this card. I'm sure they were just trying to get a hometown guy on there and fill it up. But not a lot of experience from these guys. They're both pretty green, but have a lot of finishing potential between both of them. So I think this will be a fun fight. You know, Peričić, you know, big guy, 6'5", decent striking. Hasn't really fought anyone on the regional scene. Does have a loss by submission to a guy in Randall Raymond, who was like the champion of the organization, 13-3 at the time. So no shame in that. He was really able to weather the storm from Peričić and eventually take over in the grappling and get the finish. But Brando just seems kind of unpolished. Just seems kind of sloppy at times. Hasn't really put it together, in my opinion. He does come from a kickboxing background before he transitioned to MMA. Does train at City Kickboxing with, you know, Ulberg and Adesanya, but I would just expect his striking to be a little bit better than what I've seen. And again, I haven't seen tons of footage from just a few of his fights, of his regional fights, but I don't know. Was doing well in that fight that he lost before he kind of fizzled out and got out grappled. But outside of that, you know, all of his fights are won by a finish, by rear naked choke or KO. So who knows? We'll see how this one plays out, if he can get the win in his UFC debut in front of his home country against another pretty green guy in Elisha Ellison, who's only been fighting for maybe 3 years at this point, but he's also 6'5", 5'1". Has a lot of finishing potential, a lot of finishing instinct once he gets guys hurt. Ends fights pretty early, very aggressive early on, fast starts, decent striking, had a really nice head kick knockout on the regional scene where he just showed a lot of finishing instinct once he had the guy hurt. And comes from a jiu-jitsu background, was training jiu-jitsu, got convinced to start fighting, and that's how he eventually transitioned over to MMA. So I do think he's going to have the better ground game, going to have the better jiu-jitsu game heading into this one. So I'm going to go with the underdog in Elisha Ellison. I just think he's a little bit more tenacious, has more finishing potential on the feet, definitely has more finishing potential on the ground. I think he's more of a dog. I think he's more well-rounded. I think he closes the distance much quicker on the feet. He can fight going forwards, fight going backwards. You know, Peričić, he's usually comfortable and does well fighting forwards, but that complements Ellison's style as well, because he does a very good job of fighting backwards. So something I saw is Peričić likes to throw combos and kind of crash into the clinch. Looks to work in the clinch with knees, elbows. Sometimes looks for takedowns as well from there, but Ellison does a really good job of working in the clinch, staying safe, working off, and throwing his own strikes or getting takedowns from that position. So I think the big game changer in this one is that Ellison will be going for takedowns and will be able to get them against Peričić, in my opinion. And like I said earlier, I think he'll have the better jiu-jitsu coming from the jiu-jitsu background, whereas Peričić is just more of a pure striker, and I just don't think he's even that great or clean of a striker for that being your kind of your main weapon heading into this one. So you know, the City Kickboxing guys, they're not really known as much for their ground game as much as for their stand-up ability. Granted, they do have very good range management and movement and the ability to keep it on the feet where they excel, but you know, we've seen guys like, you know, Adesanya and others get kind of exposed when it does go to the ground, and I think that's what's going to happen in this one. I think Elisha Ellison will be getting respect on the feet, maybe hurting him. I could see him knocking him out too, because he's got hands, he's got power, but I do see him mixing it up a little bit more. I trust his cardio. I've seen Peričić kind of fizzle as the fight progressed when he wasn't able to get it out of there in the first round and get an easy finish. Seen him kind of fizzle, get taken down, controlled, and eventually finished. I think that's what happens in this one if Ellison doesn't knock him out on the feet. I think he'll be able to get him to the ground and get the finish there. So I am going to go with Elisha Ellison to get this one done. Thanks.